Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Everybody knows that Pennsylvania is ground zero. Everybody knows if we win Pennsylvania, we win the White House. And look, as I always say, we are solving the mail-in ballot problem. That's what we're doing. Here's why door knocking works. There's millions of dollars spent on both sides, on TV ads, radio ads, mail pieces, digital ads. All of that needs to happen, and both sides do it. But the difference is this. When you show up at a door and you can have a real conversation, people are muting their TV. People are ignoring the digital ads. The text messages, my gosh, I've probably gotten 1,000 text messages in the last hour. All of that is noise. What's not noise is this idea of a young person going to somebody's door, engaging with them, talking to them about the issues that matter to them. That's why door knocking is so paramount. Cool thing about the PHAs, we're knocking 500,000 doors. And those conversations, man, that's gonna be the difference maker. And so I tell people, whether it's the left with their literature saying, yeah, door knocking is the most impactful thing you can do, or if it's even just looking at the cost of what it takes to connect with these people. But it's hard work. You're not just working with the professional class, editing a video, and then doing a media buy. No, you've got to vet people, you've got to interview them, you've got to make sure they've got housing, they've got gas cards, you got to make sure you're doing their payroll, you've got to provide food, snacks, and then you've got to hold them accountable. The Democrats have mastered this. But no longer is it just going to be them versus nobody. It's them versus us at the PHAs. We are going toe-to-toe. We're matching the Democrats. We're beating them at their own game. And honestly, we're fighting fire with fire. That's how we win in 2024.
The Pennsylvania ballot chase race is on, folks. Welcome back to Training Tuesday, and the Rob Maness Show is live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. That's right. Early voting and mail-in voting are in progress now, both of them in Pennsylvania. President Trump had a packed house town hall last night in Pennsylvania where he took questions from citizens and veterans once again. In his words, and Cliff's, we win Pennsylvania, we win the whole thing, folks. The usual suspect numbers we saw generated favoring Kamala Harris by the regime media seem to have finally evaporated, and reality is settling in. We're seeing the winning effort become public now. Voting groups not generally tending to vote Republican are increasingly coming forward and encouraging others to support Mr. Trump in large numbers that we've not really seen before. In September, the mail-in ballot chase operations we've been supporting began in earnest, and they're on fire as we speak. And Pennsylvania native Cliff Maloney, as you just saw there, he's the founder of PHAs, and he's designed over 300 election-winning door-knocking campaigns around the country. He's back with us today, as he promised he would be a few weeks out, to discuss the state of the race and update us on his ballot chase operations. Cliff, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. I've got my green 1776 Pennsylvania, your Eagles, and our independents that we won there.
Well, it's a whirlwind out here, Rob, I'll tell you. I mean, we're grinding on the ground. I'm in Meadville, PA today, tracking these numbers, seeing where we're at. You know, we told you, as you showed in the video, that we knock over 500,000 doors. I'm happy to report on your show we're now over 250,000, and we're working it. We are grinding on the ground. We're trying to get there. As your viewers have heard before, we've got 10 Airbnbs, 120 full-time ballot chasers. And, you know, we're just analyzing these results, but we're going to keep pounding the pavement until November 5th.
Yeah, it's like we see you everywhere, all over the state, Cliff. That's a good thing. We're seeing a whole bunch of other groups that are working together throughout this process What are some of those other groups? Remind folks of who else you're working with.
Yeah, we got great partners in the state. And I will say this, I think this is the first cycle, Colonel, that probably ever Republicans have said, listen, we need synergy, right? We have to come together. We have to work with every single organization because we're all rowing in the same direction. So I give tons of credit to Scott Presser with Early Vote Action, Charlie Kirk's Turning Point Action, America First Works, another great partner of ours. You know, there are so many groups. And look, I have to give credit to Michael Whatley and Lara Trump, because this is the first time that I can remember, and I've been involved with these ground games now for years, where we're sharing data with the RNC and with the Trump campaign. We're sharing these things. We're working together. There's full synergy. And look, any other groups I didn't mention, that's not a shot at them. We need more. Okay, Democrats have over 16 groups just in Pennsylvania that are working every angle, whether it's registration, whether it's mail-in ballots, whether it's GOTV and turnout. We all need to be rowing together. And I think this is the first cycle that I'm happy to report we are. And it scares the living daylights out of the Democrats.
Yeah. I've never seen it so focused in one state. The president says that Pennsylvania is the key. You say Pennsylvania is the key. Let's see if we can get other groups to pitch in and throw some money your way and throw some money to the other organizations' way to really heat things up even more than they already are. I fully support that, as you know, and I'm out there every day advocating for folks to get in there and pitch in and help you. One of the questions I have, though, is what are your teams hearing from people when they do knock on these doors now? What kind of feedback are they getting face to face?
Well, I'll share feedback, but let's talk numbers, okay? Democrats always crush mail-in ballots, right? Whether it's requests and whether it's returns. Now, right now, they're actually doing pretty well with returns. I want to be honest with the viewers. They're outpacing their returns in 2020, even though they're down 460,000 requests. That's pretty wild, right? But it shows you how serious these Democrats are about winning these elections. But let's look at Republican returns. That's the variable that I do control. That is what we're all working towards. If you look at Republican mail-in ballot returns in 2020, even at the height of COVID, when mail-in was, the fresh, hot new thing, Republicans only had 44,000 Republican returns at this time in 2020. Well, where are we now? We've more than doubled that, Rob. You want to talk about results? You want to talk about actual, authentic, real action on the ground leading to success? We're over 90,000 Republicans that have returned their mail-in ballot. That is over 2 times the amount we had back in 2020. So look, we've still got a long road ahead. Okay, the Democrats are outpacing their 2020 numbers. Yes, we've doubled it, and they're up by just a couple percentage from where they are. But if they hold those 2020 numbers and we don't cut into our numbers, which right now we have, which is great, this is just the start. We've still got 3 more weeks, and there's not a second to spare. And so I tell anybody, go to phas.com right now. If you can chip in $175 to cover a full day of ballot chasing, we greatly appreciate it. Colonel, I appreciate your support. It's very rare to me of somebody that is not only a media personality, but somebody that's an activist who chips in and helps us to find resources. But this is about everybody coming together and getting involved. And I'd like to announce on your show this morning, we just put out a new program called the Final Sprint. And so what this is although we have 120 full-time ballot chasers, I'm offering to pay for housing, gas, and all the training to put up 100 additional ballot chasers October 23rd through Election Day. And if people want to apply, I don't care where you are in the world, if you want to come to Pennsylvania, because this does decide the White House, phas.com/sprint, phas.com/sprint. And you can apply or you can chip in to sponsor those 100 additional ballot chasers. But this is it, right? We've been building this thing for a year. So many patriots have been spreading the word, registering voters, getting the mail-in ballot requests. It all comes down to these next 3 weeks.
Yeah, it sure does. So do you need a car to sign up to come work up there, or are you guys providing transportation and that kind of thing?
So we will help with money to get into the state or to get from wherever you are to get to York, PA. That's where we're going to have our base camp, if you will.
We'd prefer if people have vehicles, but we will have some slots open for people who don't. Roughly half will want 2 people in each car. So if you can come out and you can dedicate that time, we'll cover the housing, we'll cover the gas. We've got funders who are stepping up right now. And these are patriots. Remember, these aren't special interests, Rob. These aren't corporations that care about some handout or the gravy train. These are people that want to save the republic. And so they're offering to provide that because they realize how important Pennsylvania is. So yeah, anybody that can give us that time, if you're able to do it, some folks say, listen, I can't chip in, but I'd love to come out. This is your opportunity. You can get off the couch. You can come to a state, especially if you're in a super red or super blue state, where it's not going to matter. Pennsylvania will dictate the White House. And Rob, I hate the saying this is the most important election of our lifetime. I always laugh at people who say it. Well, this is the first time I believe it. This is the most important election that will dictate the future of our republic, and we've got to win it.
Yeah, we do. What are you're talking with Watley and Laura Trump, and I'm assuming the Trump team. What are you hearing from them as far as where they think they're at in the state?
Yeah, I mean, we're all in lockstep. This is going to be a razor thin race. Sure, I'd love to blow it out and have Trump win by 5 points. That'd be fantastic. But as it stands, Democrats are pacing very well with their returns. Their whole entire campaign message of not Donald Trump, because that's all it is, right? They're not running on any issues. They have no issues to run on. The whole thing is brainwash people to hate Donald Trump, and let's motivate that enough to keep the deep state, to keep the uniparty, to keep the military contractors all getting the money that they need and that permanent infrastructure in D.C. So I think we're all on the same page. Look, we're looking to make sure that we don't leave any stone unturned and that every person either votes early, they vote by mail, or they show up on election day. And I just think that's the sprint, is trying to figure out how we get as many people as we can. And I agree with the phrase too big to rig. Let me say this for your viewers in a way that is going to get me called a conspiracy theorist, but it's the truth. The problem we're going to have in PA is any of the ballots, especially the mail-in ballots, that are not legal. And what I mean by that is that, they're not turned in legally, meaning they don't follow the rules. Okay, either they're not signed, they don't have the date, the day, or the year, or they don't have the secrecy envelope, that's supposed to go in with every mail-in ballot. They'll all be marked as provisional. But what I tell people is, if we only win by 30 or 50,000 votes, and there's 100,000 provisional ballots out there, Democrats are going to fight tooth and nail, right? This is the lawfare that you're seeing in this country. And so when I say too big to rig, what I mean is we have to win by more than the delta of how many of those provisional ballots are out there. Because, Democrats understand that they can get these judges, Republican or Democrat judges, to approve of these things, even though they clearly go against the rules because they say they don't want to disenfranchise voters. So our message and where we stand is it's a neck and neck race. We're going to fight tooth and nail. I think that's the same message from Watley and from Trump, from the Trump campaign, from the McCormick campaign, from all of our statewide campaigns. We have to just run this thing as if we're down by 10 votes up through November 5th.
Yeah, I think some people are under the misimpression that running the score up is not necessarily a good thing because maybe they have a bad experience in their sports life or something like that. But like Vince Lombardi said, winning is the only thing. That's the way it works in football. That's the way it works in politics. You don't govern if you don't win. And you see the results of that every single day.
Well, this is something I found, Rob. When I've done a lot of liberty Republican politics, I'm a big believer in the libertarian wing of the party. And I tell people that, when Roger Stone said the word losers don't legislate, it really connected with me because I think a lot of people, look, there's purity and there's focusing on principles. And that's something I focus on every single day. But at the end of the day, there's always kind of this I'd rather figure out a way to win than complain about the rules. I've said this on your show before, and I get made fun of by leftist legacy media folks when they say, oh, well, the guy who's running mail-in ballots in PA says he hates mail-in ballots. Well, I do. But what do I hate more? I hate losing, right? And so we have to adapt to the rules. We have to fight fire with fire. And so we're running up the score mostly in Republican counties, to be clear. I want a Republican clerk to count the vote. But if we just sit this thing out and we don't try to participate with the current rules, we lose. And I'm not okay with that. I'm not going to sit by as we do that. And I think that's the change here in the Republican mindset.
Yeah, it's a dramatically different mindset and approach too, and we'll talk some more about that and hear from a Black American that's not a Republican when we come back from this break, Cliff. And I got some questions in the audience, so we'll be able to take some questions too. I got a suspicion that they're from Pennsylvania. We'll be right back with Cliff Maloney of PA Chase, right here on the Rob Maness Show at Worldview Tube and X Spaces simulcast.
Well, what do we have here? According to the mainstream media, Harris pledges to earn the vote of black men as Trump makes gains. And as a registered independent that lives in Pennsylvania, I can tell you for a fact that there are a lot of black men that I know that will not vote for Kamala Harris, especially those brothers that work in the fracking industry. As soon as they heard her say that she is all in for banning fracking, they said, oh, hell no. We voting for Trump. After all, she's got no policies. She's full of word salad. Therefore, anything she says is not valid. Me personally, I have never voted. But this time, this year, this will be my first and last vote, and it will go to Trump because there will never be another Republican like him. Trump 2024. Let's go.
Wow. Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. And the PA Chase is on. The race is heated up now. We're 20 days out. And the founder and leader of the PA Chase operation there in Pennsylvania, Cliff Maloney, is with me today. And Cliff, a couple of things really jumped out at me when I saw that clip. Beyond that man's race, one, he's a registered independent. Two, he's never voted before. And three, he's openly saying, I'm voting for Donald Trump. And he's talking about fracking and the impact that Kamala Harris's opinions and viewpoints on that part of our energy system has on his friends and his population there in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and look, I'm going to tell you this. I think you're going to see earth-shattering results when it comes to black men for Donald Trump. Listen, a lot of people are talking about it. Pundits are going to yap about it. I'm seeing it on the ground. Okay, I'm in Meadville right now. I'm headed up to Erie, chasing ballots today and tomorrow. But I was out in Philadelphia, last week, and we're knocking doors. And, we have a lot of these black men that we run into that are independent, or they're, let's say Republicans that are low propensity, and they're not voting for Kamala Harris. And I think, look, there's a lot of reasons why. Number one, I think they're not stupid when it comes to the economy, right? And it's like, when the economy is impacting so many people, I don't care if they're black, brown, white, orange, whatever, people understand their pocketbooks. And so I think that this idea that Barack Obama can just come out and direct black men to support Harris and say that, You can't sit this one out because you're not supporting a woman. I just think it's only compounding the support that Trump is seeing with blacks, with Hispanics, I mean, with ethnicities across the board. And I just think the border is a bigger issue than people think. But at the end of the day, nothing is going to be more important than being able to put food on the table, pay your mortgage, take care of your kids, put gas in your tank. And the Democrats are dealing with that right now. And here's the problem, Colonel. They ran this entire campaign as using Harris as a change candidate. She's in the current administration. So give me a break. I mean, I don't know how they're thinking that some of these voters are stupid. The American people aren't stupid. They understand. They can look at their bank account. And I just think you have this this two-sided story that Harris is trying to parade out. And you pair that with their whole message being, well, you should hate Trump. Well, why would you hate Trump if for his 4 years prices were lower than obviously they are now? And I just think they have a messaging dilemma that they don't have a solution to it.
Well, they don't. I was in a meeting with J.D. Vance less than a week ago, and he mentioned that they were seeing numbers of young, college-educated, not college-educated men. And he broke it down into different demographics like black men, Hispanics, white, and everything. And Trump is overwhelmingly, like in the 50s, taking that demographic of non-college educated young white men because, and I told JD this, I said, the reason they're doing it is because of jobs and the economy. And Donald Trump, he actually can talk about it from a cogent perspective, to use a big word, but he's also done it. You know, he knows what to do. And he tells people every day, well, here's what I'm going to do. You know, inflation's going to disappear. Energy, we're going to drill, baby, drill. And those two things, the drill, baby, drill, number one, is going to bring the inflation down. And then it's not that people in that category can't pay a mortgage. They can't get a mortgage and buy a house right now, which is still considered the American dream, man. Well, we got questions from the audience. Let's take a question from the live audience, Cliff. Go ahead, Shell, with that first question.
We have Matt, sir.
Colonel, good show today. A lot of good info from Cliff there. Cliff, if you don't mind clarifying something you said in the last segment. So it sounds to me like if we can get enough in-person turnout plus mail-in ballots with what you're doing with ballot chasers, we have to overwhelm the number of Democrat turnout plus mail-in ballots plus provisional ballots. And if we can do that, we win the election, correct?
Yeah, let me clarify. That's a great question. So what I'm saying is when you total up all the votes for both Trump versus Harris, right, regardless of how they come in, I'm saying that on election night, you're going to have a bunch of provisional ballots, meaning I'm referring specifically, there's not that many provisionals in person. Okay, some people show up and their name's not, matching their ID, or they're not registered at the right precinct they showed up to. Yeah, there'll be a handful of those provisional ballots, but the large batches of provisional ballots, they will come in because of people that sent in a mail ballot and they didn't sign it, they didn't date it, or they didn't have a secrecy envelope. And so my point is, if we want to win this thing, what we need to do is win by more votes. If you just count all the votes together, we have to win by more votes. Our win margin has to be larger than the amount of those provisional ballots. Now, listen, the reason I'm saying that is because when you look at the breakdown of provisional ballots in 2020, you have to understand that, it was 20 to 80%, meaning 20% of all mail-in ballots were Republican and 80% were Democrat. And so it created this scenario where whenever all these batches would come in, it would be landslide additional votes for Biden. So that's why I'm saying that I don't expect the courts to stand up and uphold the current rules saying you have to sign them, date them, and use the envelope. So I'm worried that if we don't have a big enough win, it's going to come down to the courts deciding. But if we have more of a margin of victory than the provisionals that are out there, there's not enough votes to overturn it and swing it for Harris.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense there, Cliff. So the numbers of Democrat mail-in ballots versus the numbers of Republican mail-in ballots this year, when compared to 2024? Where are we at? 60-40 Dem Republican at this point, or is it better than that?
Yeah, so let me start off by saying what our stated goal is, and then I'll talk to you about current numbers, right? So right now on average, and I'm only looking at Republican versus Democrat. A lot of people try to throw in the others and the independents. I think that's valuable to look at when you're trying to figure out, who's voting where and who you're targeting. But our math says that the statewide candidates, Republicans, have averaged 20% of the mail-in to the Democrats' 80%. That's totaling all the mail-in ballots and looking at how many of those went to the Republican versus the Democrat candidate since they've changed the rules. Our objective is to get that to be 33%. Okay, so if Trump gets 33% of all mail-in ballots compared to Harris, I'm taking out Stein, I'm taking out any of the libertarians or the independents or the throwaway votes. If we can get to 33%, it's a landslide win. We win the Senate seat, we win all the statewides, we win Scott Perry's congressional, we flip the state house. But we don't need 33%, right? 25 or 26% gets us close. And so right now, if you look at the results, Republicans are trending in a much better position, at least on returns. We're at close to 25%. At this time 4 years ago, we were at like 14 or 15%. We still have to improve that, right? That is not where we want to land. But one big asterisk or note for your followers, Philly and Pittsburgh had their ballots out immediately. And some of these red counties still have not sent them out. Now, I'm not saying that that's nefarious, but I'm just telling people, looking at the returns this early, it's good to kind of track where we are. But I expect much better results, not just next Monday, but the following Monday, because you'll have a better account of all the counties. But my warning to everyone, Democrats are doing very well right now in returns. Okay, we cannot let up. We have to double down. Just because they're down 460,000 requests compared to where they were 4 years ago, it doesn't matter. They're still returning their ballots at a great clip. So we've got to keep pounding the pavement.
Yeah, what is it? Have they seen what we're doing and all of a sudden said, oh, we've got to push the throttle up? Or do you think they're reacting to us? Because they're watching. Obviously, we're doing something very different than we did in 2020.
Yeah, see, you're right. They are watching us. I just think when people are like, Cliff, why do you put this information out? I'm like, listen, the Democrats in their war room, they're looking at this every minute. This is nothing new, right? This is how they win the election. It's how they won in 2020, is they ran up the score on mail-in voting. And so to me, right now, they're spending twice as much money as they did in 2020. We are looking out in the field and we see them. They've got twice as many people. The good thing is they've really failed at these requests. And like I said, it's frustrating that they're still doing well on returns, but because they've done so bad on requests, it's going to mean there are less people for them to target and less people for them to focus on with these mail-in votes. Now, the counter argument I hear all the time is, Cliff, it was COVID in 2020. These people are going to vote in person. Well, as we learned, Colonel, when you're trying to get people to show up on election day, it costs more money, it's more time, it's more energy, more resources, and they only have 1 day to vote. So sure, Democrats could surprise us and they could turn out hundreds of thousands of people that had a mail-in ballot last cycle and now they're going to vote in person. But it's a difficult task. And so to me, we've got two things to do. Democrats are going to do what they do. Our focus is simple. Get as many of these mail-in ballots that are sitting out there waiting to be returned by Republicans sent back. And then two, anybody else, get them to show up on November 5th. We keep our eyes on the prize, focus on those two things, and I think we win the election. This is ours to lose. It is not ours to win. We have the numbers. It's the first time we've seen that, especially when you compare Trump in 16 and 20. We just have to do the work to get these people to vote.
Yeah, and I think we have the motivation, too. The energy is there to match those numbers, Cliff. The interesting thing is, I wonder if, and I'm going to wonder it out loud because I think we ought to be talking about this stuff, is have the Democrats let their election day infrastructure, their get out the vote machinery, kind of atrophy because they focus so much on mail-in ballots in the past?
I think that's the biggest variable. Obviously, we don't control it, so I'm not focused on it. But if I'm just a pundit or somebody that's analyzing the results, that's the biggest question to determine Pennsylvania at the moment. what do Democrats do on election day, right? Are they able to go back to their turnout machine? Is it a complete flop and Trump wins by 5 points? Because they're obviously continuing to crush mail-in voting, right? The returns, I have to give them credit. The returns show that they're still getting their people at a clip comparable to 2020, just slightly better, and they're making that work. And so the thing we have to look for, if you're really looking at what's going to flip it, is what do Democrats do on election day? And I got to tell you, look, we're obviously focused on Republican mail-in ballots and Republicans turning out, but that's going to be it, Rob. Do they have the infrastructure? Do they have the money, the time, and the resources to turn these folks out on election day? I can tell you this, they're going to try. Okay, they're not the type of people to sit out and make sure, that, hey, maybe we'll win. So we'll have to see how well they're able to convert the former mail-in ballots to people who show up on November 5th.
Yeah, they're definitely going to try. There's no doubt in my mind about it. We got to take another break. When we come back, we got another question from the audience, but we'll also hear from Donald Trump from last night in Pennsylvania in the opening clip for the next segment. We're here talking with Cliff Maloney of the PA Chase, going and getting those Republican ballots.
Let me just give you the bottom line, though. We win Pennsylvania. We win this great Commonwealth. We are going to win the whole ball game. It's such an important place. And we relate. And we are up in the polls fairly nicely. But it's really important. And we're going to turn this country around. It's the greatest movement in the history of our country, MAGA, Make America Great Again. When Biden would go on, he used to go on, say, we will stop MAGA. We will stop, remember with the purple background, the pink and purple? He looked like the devil, right? But she's worse than him, remember it. But they would say, we're going to stop MAGA. MAGA means Make America Great Again. I mean, what are you going to stop? And we are indeed going to make America great again. America has never, we're a declining nation right now. We're a nation in decline. And we're not going to be in decline for long, let me tell you. Every country respected us 4 years ago. We were energy independent. We had everything. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We're going to bring it back bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Go and vote. Let me hear that music, please.
Everyone, let's thank President Trump.
Nice and loud.
God bless you. Let's send President Trump back to the White House.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show on Worldview Tube. It's Training Tuesday, and Cliff Maloney of the Pennsylvania Ballot Chase Operation, the pachase.org is the website. If I remember correctly, go there and help them out or volunteer to go up there and get paid to add to the Sprint, which is another 100 ballot chasers, the Sprint program that Cliff's got set up. Well, Cliff, that was President Trump. He mentioned polling. And look, polling is what it is, but Rasmussen reports, and I'll have Mark Mitchell on Thursday to talk about this, is now saying that Trump is up +3 in Pennsylvania. I don't recall that President Trump has ever been up in Pennsylvania in 2016 or 2020 at all. And he hasn't been in this race, really. It's either been tied or slightly below.
Yeah, I mean, when you compare the numbers to 16 and 20, I mean, if you look at that and then where we actually landed on election day, I'm feeling very good. The problem is the polling is so difficult because there are all these different ways you can vote now, right? For any pollster to try to model some of these mail-ins versus in person versus election day, it's just difficult. And really, this has become what I call turnout elections. It's not messaging elections. It's not, really getting people that are swing voters. You have to do some of that. But at the end of the day, this is about getting people that are going to be Trump supporters to show up. And Rob, I'll tell you, I do a lot of doors in Republican primaries. I try to take out rhinos, replace them with liberty-loving, free market constitutionalists. Those doors are tough because you're going in, you're messaging against a Republican for a real Republican, but they're tough conversations. Typically in the general election, you're talking to swing voters, right? You're not going to the base. Yeah, you want to turn out your base, but you're trying to get swing voters to come your way. This is very different, this ballot chasing. You're going to people's doors that are ready to vote for Trump, ready to vote for McCormick. They're going to vote for the entire Republican ticket. And you're simply saying, hey, you've got a ballot sitting there. Can we get you to commit to send that in today? And so I just tell people the big difference this cycle is it's not some sort of messaging or swing voter election. It's about turning out the people that support Donald Trump. And the left has had this advantage for years. This is the first time in history where low propensity voters, there's actually more Republicans than Democrats. And I mean, that could change once we fix this mail-in ballot situation. But what it means is the more people that vote, the likelier it is that Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania and wins the White House. And so that's why I say we're running a reminder campaign with the PA Chase. Folks can go to pachase.com. They can donate right now. They can sponsor a student. They can come out and help us. But the turnout is everything. And what it's going to take is reminding every single person who plans to vote for Donald Trump to actually get out and do the deed. Make sure you vote any way possible. You got to have a plan and you got to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely right. I call it's a ballot. It's a get out the ballot operation, as opposed to getting voters out, because we have to focus on these ballots now, which is what you guys are obviously doing. And the whole team is really, from what I can tell, across the board. Even the lawyers are focused on getting our ballots in the boxes to get them counted. That's the real deal. We've got questions over in the audience. Let's go over there. Shell, who's next?
We have Caroline, sir. Hey, good afternoon, Colonel. Good afternoon, Shell. Thanks for the space. And good afternoon, Cliff. Hello, Cliff. Our state is electric. Oh my gosh, isn't it? It's very exciting. And it is exciting. It is everything about what you said, getting out people to get motivated to vote, and they are doing it. But I wanted to ask you if you see things the same way I do. I see Lara Trump and Michael Whatley. I see them really working hard. I do. They came in at like halftime. You know what I mean? And I think that they're doing a fantastic job. I really do. Because the RNC is not the same as the GOP. And I think that they're doing a fantastic job. Do you see this same thing? I give them huge credit. Do you see this too, Cliff?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I agree with your statement. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for years in terms of not chasing ballots, but we've run paid ground games. And since the rules changed, I mean, Republicans were out to lunch, right? It wasn't until Lara Trump and Michael Whatley got involved that you see full synergy. I mean, I give them so much credit. We're working directly with the RNC as much as we can legally. The fact that they're dictating targets and sharing data, it used to be kind of the good old boys club, right? As I used to say, it's a big club and we ain't in it, right? I mean, it's just that situation where, there was a lot of money and there were things going through it. That's changed. And I do give them so much credit because this synergy is why I feel like we're going to win. And by the way, this is the first year it's happened, right? So you might say, I wish we would have had them, since the start in 21. But the Democrats had growing pains too, right? You have to learn. What I'm most excited about is, yes, winning this election, but also where do we move from here, right? How do we create a permanent infrastructure in some of these swing states, heck, in every state, so that we understand the rules, we play by the rules, and we focus to make sure that we have every advantage that the Democrats have just enjoyed for the past couple of years because we've refused to adapt. So I give complete credit to Whatley and Trump for the work they're doing, the openness, the vulnerability that we're trying new things because we want to win. And I think for the first time in my lifetime, there's one major goal: winning. And a lot of things like people making money and some of these relationships, that's getting pushed to the side, which it needs to. And Democrats, they don't put up with it. Democrats are serious people. And I think we're finally becoming a serious party under Watley and under Trump and the work that they're doing.
Yeah, and our messaging this year, for the first time, really, we're messaging in a positive way that get out and vote early. The too big to rig message, the swamp the vote message, all of those things. Are you actually seeing people engage on that? Obviously, our mail-in ballots are larger, right? If I remember correctly, the numbers are greater than they have been in the past. And obviously, we've got twice as many returns in that category. But what about early voting, which just started today, right, in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so early voting it's a tough one because some people are misunderstanding it in PA. But yes, most counties are allowing folks. Pretty much the way it works is you're going in and you're requesting a mail-in ballot in person. You fill it out there, and that's the thing that's very fascinating here is there's so many new rules, right? COVID created kind of this firestorm of, yes, the mail-in votes are a big thing, but then there's also, some of these pushes to have people go do their mail-in vote in person. I encourage everybody to either A, get your mail-in ballot request and return it to the clerk directly, or B, go there now, request the mail-in in person, fill it out, submit it directly, or C, show up on election day. Because, I am a big believer, and I don't want to put things in the mail. If that's the only option people have, sure. But I like to do it as securely as possible. And I just think that, there's so many different rules, Colonel, and we're just trying to adapt to figure out how we can game the system the way the Democrats do.
Yeah. Do you think there's any reality to the concern about the postal union and the post office handling these ballots? I know personally I'm concerned about it when I see that type of political activity, and the numbers of mail-ins are just so great now. It's not like it was in the old days where if you had a valid absentee reason, where it could really affect the election outcome for the most part. But now it certainly does.
Yeah, I have the same concern. I mean, I think the problem is what's the alternative, right? So if people are not able to get to their county clerk's office, I'd much rather them send it in than not. And I think anybody that says, well, they should just show up on election day, folks, we can't win that way. Okay, you can't have a sales competition where your competitor gets to sell for 50 days and you say to yourself, well, I'm just going to have a really, really good sales record on the final day. I wish that was the case. I wish we could just push everybody to vote on election day. I'd like to get back there. I'd like to take back the PA State House and force it through and make it veto proof so Shapiro has to deal with it and we go back to 1 day, paper ballots, hand count, no same day registration. That'd be great, but that's not reality. And so, yeah, I have the same concerns, of course, especially in Philly and Pittsburgh and those areas where some of the mail gets routed through. But I say to everybody, there's no alternative when somebody's either not going to vote or they're going to vote by mail. And so I think we need to push as hard as we can for people to make a plan to vote, to get them to vote, and to make sure that we're monitoring and watching things as closely as possible when it comes to any type of malfeasance from the left.
Yeah, great answers. You mentioned in the last segment about the ability to request a mail-in ballot, and there seemed to be some confusion about whether that's still available or not. Are you able to still request a mail-in ballot in this window of early voting? Is that how it works?
Yeah, here are the dates. So October 21 is final registration date. Got to be registered to vote by then. October 29th is the deadline for requesting a mail-in ballot. But I would tell yes, for requesting it, but you have to have the ballot back by election day. And I tell people, these are counties, these are government workers, even in Republican counties, we're not sending our best, folks. Okay. So I tell people, if you're really looking to vote by mail, get that request form in now. You got to get it to the county within the next couple of days because you want to make sure they have time to send it back to you and then you have time to send it in. But October 21st is registration deadline in PA. The 29th is the final day to request. And then obviously either vote in person on November 5th or that's when they have to receive your ballot.
Okay, so those are the dates, folks. We'll come back from this break and we'll continue this discussion about early voting. There's a little public service announcement courtesy of the Dilly Meme team we're going to play when we're coming back with Cliff Maloney of PA Chase. We're going to win, folks. We just got to keep the throttles up. We'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show.
We live in uncertain times. In fact, we live at a time when our own governments all over the world are warning us that there could be big problems with our power grid. World War III seems to be right on the horizon. Let me ask you this. Do you have a satellite phone? Should communications go down with cell towers? Do you have a satellite phone to get a hold of that college student or your spouse who travels, whatever it might be, to get a hold of your senior adult parents? We have satellite phones at worldviewtalk.com, and you get the satellite phone for free when you sign up for their very reasonable payment programs for the service. Sign up for the service with a reasonable contract, get the satellite phone for free. Worldviewtalk.com. You'll also find they have, well, what I now have, which is a solar generator. Yeah, I have a gas generator, an LP propane generator, but what if that goes down? I want to back up to my backup. So I now have a solar generator as well. You'll find them at worldviewtalk.com. Check it out today, worldviewtalk.com.
Listen up, Pennsylvania. It's time to go vote. Don't wait for the last minute. 1,000 things can go wrong on Election Day. You know how they do. Voting early in person is just like voting on Election Day, only sooner. 43 of Pennsylvania's 67 counties already have early ballots available. The deadline to register is October 21st. The deadline to vote early is October 29th. If you need to find an early voting location, you can visit vote.pa/early and find all the voting locations near you. If you don't want your kids to starve to death, then get out and vote. Don't act like a little girlie. Get out and vote early. Get up and do it now. This has been another public service announcement paid for by the Dilly Meme team.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Training Tuesday here on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. And my guest today is the founder and organizer and leader of PA Chase, the ballot chasing operation for mail-in ballots in the state of Pennsylvania, Cliff Maloney. And Cliff, I couldn't pass that one up from the Dilly Beam team. It's one of their best and focused really on good information there. And Cliff is back with us today to talk about what the status is. All right, man. So we're 20 days out, Cliff. You're getting the sprint organized. What do you see happening over these next 20 days to get us to success before we take our question?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is, making sure that we go to every single Republican's door that has a ballot sitting there, right? And once again, Rob, I always say this, we're not creating some new strategy. It's new for Republicans. We're just taking the Democrat strategy of 2020. I mean, we're using their budget. We're using their tactics. We're doing the things that they did in 2020. And it's all about that 141,000 number. Okay, 141,000 Republicans that requested a ballot in 2020 and they never sent it back. That's just egregious, right? So yes, we're running up the request numbers. We've seen significant success doing that compared to where we were originally projected to be, because 2020 was COVID. But I really don't think people understand that what you said is great. It's a get out the ballot effort. I'm going to start using that. And so I think, you've got all these different entities, all these different campaigns focused on messaging, focused on turnout. And the two major things are this: get every Republican that has a ballot to send it back. And anybody that didn't, make sure they have a plan to vote on November 5th. And once again, if people out of state want to come in, pachase.com/sprint. Would love to have you come out October 23 through Election Day. And if people can't, now's the time. I don't want to have to pull people out of the field, right? So if you're sitting there saying you can afford $175 for a full day of ballot chasing, 100% of that money goes towards the ballot chasers' pay, their housing, their gas cards, okay? And I tell folks, if you don't think you can afford it now, good luck, with the Harris administration. And so I look at it as an investment to save the republic, to get our economy back, to get this inflation under control, end the endless wars, and stop weaponizing our federal government. So I just think that's it. This is a sprint, and it's about making sure we don't let up. We have to run like we're down 10 points every single day.
Absolutely right. So let's take a question from the audience. I know we got another hand up over there before we get to the end of the show. Shell, go ahead. I think we've got a hand up.
We have Larry, sir.
Hey, Shell, thank you so much for this space. Colonel, Rob, and Larry, I'm proud to call you our brother. My question is for Cliff. So, Cliff, I know you're in PA. I'm in California. I just dropped my ballot, mail-in ballot yesterday for the elections. Should I show up on November 5th to place a ballot again to make sure my ballot counts?
No, I mean, legally, you're only allowed to vote once. So I would not recommend trying to vote twice. I think what you should do, Larry, though, is you should get a hold of the county office here in the next week and confirm that they have received your ballot. You know, the nice thing, I'll share this with you guys. I mean, we go out and we're knocking on these doors and we ask, you know, let's say I'm knocking on your door, Larry, if you were in PA, I'd say, Larry, look, we want to get you to commit to sending it in. You'd say, oh, great. Yeah, I just sent it in today. Well, we'll mark that down. We don't take you off our list. Okay, what we do is we then check with the county clerk whenever the data drops. And if 7 days later you're still not submitted, we'll go back to your door. And if you tell us, no, I sent it in, well, then we'll call the county clerk on your behalf. But we do that. We go back to the doors of people that we talk to until they send in their ballot. So some people right now have already had 2 door knocks, maybe even 3, because they've had a ballot sitting on their table and it hasn't come in yet. And Democrats call this annoying the voter, right? I hate to say it like that, but that's what they teach their people. And so these are reminder campaigns, and it's really just an effort to make sure that people are actually sending it in and confirming it. And so I'll share with you this too, just based on what you're asking with confirming the ballots in and removing people. Think back to 2020. Okay, Biden had 2 million mail-in votes to Trump's 600,000. I'm using round numbers. Imagine being the Biden campaign a week out from the election. You've got a difference there of 1.4 million votes. And what does that mean? That means those 2 million people that voted by mail, you don't have to text them. You don't have to knock on their door. You don't have to mail them. You don't have to target them on digital ads. Talk about the amount of money, Colonel, that the Democrats are able to save and then retarget into the rest of their target universe. It's another major reason while, you know, we're kind of playing with one of our legs chopped off if we think that we can just let them utilize the rules and we're just going to sit out. So, Larry, no, don't vote twice. That's illegal. We follow the rules and we fight fire with fire, but you should check to make sure that that ballot is in.
Great answer. That would have been my answer too. It's illegal to vote twice, folks. But I think Larry's question comes from this experience that some folks had that they showed up on election day in some places and were told, no, you already voted by mail-in ballot. So that may be where that's coming from. But it leads me to one of my questions, Phil. Cliff, you're an expert in Pennsylvania, timing and everything. When can the mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania start being counted? And it gets to this issue of how long does it take to know who the winner is?
Yeah, well, there's been some debate on this. There's been different court rulings to even give you a solidified answer right now. I mean, most counties are supposed to be counting them once the election day polls close. But some counties have argued and won in court. Some have lost in court. So I don't think there's a definitive answer. But I urge anyone that thinks that they voted by mail, or even if you haven't, if you're really that in the weeds, check with your county. Confirm, the week before the election that you did not send in your mail-in ballot or that you were never on the mail-in ballot request form. I mean, that's the type of warfare we have now. I know people are going to say, man, that seems pretty, in the weeds and egregious. We're trying to fight for the republic. And so if you are that person that is that tuned in, or you had that problem in the past, or you know somebody that has, take action. Call your county clerk, drive down there, talk to them, anybody, let's say you have a list of 5 to 10 people that told you this happened in your county. Get that list, review those names, go to the county. Heck, send me the list. I'll pull our data and tell you if they're supposedly already voted by mail. But you have to take proactive steps. And the biggest problem we've had as Republicans is we always try to sue after the election. And this is why under Whatley and Trump, I've been very impressed, because they're suing proactively. When you lose an election, at least based on the rulings of the ruling class, and then you try to sue after the fact as a reaction, it's very, very rare that elections get overturned. You have to fight fire immediately. You have to be playing defense, or at least I could even say going on offense before the election. And so that's why I tell everybody, audit your county rolls, see what you're registered as, see what if you've requested a mail-in ballot by their standards, and then take action. If a week ahead of time you notice, hey, listen, it says I submitted a mail ballot and you haven't, well, there's a lawsuit we might be able to win. We can get you to sign an affidavit, we can take it to the courts, and that's something. But if you wait until a week after the election, we don't really have a case. These judges don't have a spine. So I'm not here to be a spokesman for the electoral process. I'm not here to be a spokesman for mail-in ballots. I am here to say I want to be able to figure out how we audit the system, how we utilize the system to give us the best chance at victory.
Well, and that's an important question, Cliff. You know, and this is a good subject to wind the show up on, because one of the things that I've been concerned about is the Republican Party nationally not having enough attorneys available and in the trenches before Election Day. And it seems to me, from where I sit down here in South Mississippi, that we have made a sizable correction for that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sitting here, and excuse me from being on the road, but we're grinding it out here at Chasing Ballots. I mean, I'm here in Meadville. I said I was headed to Erie. I have been extremely impressed. That's another one of the boxes that I actually wasn't really looking to touch the PA Chase until I said, listen, why do I want to do all this work if we're not going to have the legal, Rolodex to be able to defend this thing and to be able to be fair and make sure it's a secure election. I think Republicans have sued multiple times with success. I think you've seen clean voter rolls in certain states because of Republicans using the legal system. And I'd argue, I think this election has a chance to come down to some of those decisions. I mean, in 2022, we were able to win cases in PA that said, no, you cannot submit a mail-in ballot that's not signed, that's not dated, or doesn't have a secrecy sleeve. That wasn't the rule before, Rob. It just wasn't. Yeah. And it's because of Republicans fighting in the courtroom ahead of time, not after, ahead of time, getting clarity on the law to make sure that only legal votes that are following the rules are counted. And look, I don't know where Democrats go from here. I mean, I think they're slipping in all these demographics. The only demographic they're gaining in is illegal immigrants. I mean, that's the truth, right? And so I think this election's a must win. We got to close the border, fix that problem. And once again, if anybody can help, pachase.com. We're going to keep working it. And I think I'm optimistic we'll pull off a win.
Absolutely. Well, Cliff, thank you so much for your time. I know you're very busy. Obviously, you're in the car in Meadville headed to Erie. But that's what we need you to be doing, my friend. So keep at it. Keep the throttles up. PAchase.com. And you can go PAchase.com Sprint to sign up to help Cliff in the last 20 days here. My friend, get out there and win one for America. That's what we're counting on you for.
Colonel, appreciate you. Appreciate all the viewers. And really, your fight for liberty is one that's inspiring. We'll talk soon. Let's win this thing. See y'all.
You bet. We'll see you out there. And tomorrow, Whistleblower Wednesday, we've got the Republican chair for Western North Carolina is going to be with us for at least part of the show, and maybe a surprise guest to talk about this so-called assassination attempt that might have not really happened out in California. And we're hoping to get that guest on board. It'll be a gangbusters half hour if we can get him to come talk to us about that. I'm Rob Maness here on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. We'll see you tomorrow.